All right, guys, welcome back to the channel where I sit with you every single week and we stack Bitcoin together. Guys, today I'm doing a video on the difference between a Ponzi versus a pyramid versus an MLM, a multi-level marketing scheme, and why Bitcoin is none of them. I noticed in the last video that I did on the reaction to Ben McKenzie and his interviews that he continues to use these terms interchangeably, Ponzi and pyramid and MLM, kind of throwing around Ponzi and pyramid together and MLM as this other thing, and that Bitcoin is really all of them and somehow falls under all of these definitions, which is impossible, right? A Ponzi and a pyramid are different, and MLM is different from all of them. And so to use these terms interchangeably makes no sense whatsoever. So I wanted to address that. I also noticed a couple comments in the last video that I made that was doing the same thing, right? That they were commenting that Bitcoin was a pyramid or a Ponzi. And again, these terms can't just be used interchangeably. And I think it's important we address what is the definition of each of these and why Bitcoin just doesn't fall into any of these definitions. Bitcoin is its own thing. It is not a Ponzi, a pyramid, or an MLM. And on this video, I want to clarify the differences between each one and what Bitcoin actually is and why it doesn't fall under these definitions. All right. So I think this is going to be really cool. I'll make this a really quick video. I don't want to bore you guys to death with this. But yeah, let's get into it. All right, guys. So again, the problem is that Bitcoin gets called a Ponzi, a pyramid, and an MLM, and sometimes all in the same sentence. We saw this in the Ben McKenzie reaction video where he just kind of kept throwing these terms around and just saying that Bitcoin's all of them, whereas that you can't do that, right? Because a Ponzi is not a pyramid is not an MLM, and Bitcoin is none of them. And I honestly, it kind of pisses me off when I think about Ben McKenzie. It's one thing to, make comments on a video or a Reddit forum or make stupid videos online for yourself, kind of like what I do, but to be someone like Ben McKenzie that's out there on The Daily Show, that's on PBS, that is making a cryptocurrency Bitcoin documentary and not knowing the basics of that, there is a fundamental difference between all of these fraudulent schemes, and then understanding enough about Bitcoin to be able to look at the characteristics of it, compare it to these schemes, and notice that you can't define them, or you can't use these schemes to define Bitcoin. Right. To me, I think is super irresponsible. I think, he's got to do better with that. Again, I think it's just lazy investigative work, because this is super basic stuff, right? For someone like him, not for everyone. I think one of the biggest pushbacks that anyone gets when they talk to someone that doesn't know about Bitcoin is that it's a Ponzi, or it's potentially a pyramid or some kind of fraudulent scheme. And that's a totally fair thing to say for someone that doesn't know anything, right? That's so fair. But ultimately, if you're going out making documentaries and doing interviews and podcasts and you don't know these things, irresponsible, man. But again, this is why I want to clarify this on this video. So what is the Ponzi scheme? And I think this is where, I wanted to start with the Ponzi scheme because there is a gray zone, specifically with the Ponzi scheme, where I have it bolded there, where old investors are paid using new investors' money. And I think right there is where people say, well, that's what Bitcoin is, and isn't it? If you had an early investor, they're making money off of the new investors that come in. And those old investors get to get paid by the new investors that have invested in Bitcoin. And that is true, right? There is a truth to that statement, but that's true for all markets, right? That's true for all markets. The stock market works the same. Any stocks that you look at, any houses that you look at, anything when it comes to a market where there's open supply and demand, works in that way. But what makes a Ponzi different is that it's not based off of supply and demand dynamics. There is no supply and demand. There is a central person or a central operator or entity that is guaranteeing you returns. And ultimately, they're not investing in anything. They're taking the money and they're recycling it to old investors. So they're taking new money and they're recycling it to old investors, and then they just keep that fraud going, right? There is no actual investment into anything. So if we look at the most famous example of a Ponzi scheme, which was Bernie Madoff, what he did was he received money, his first investors, let's say, he received their money. As he got new investors onboarded, he took the money from the new investors and he paid out the old investors. And he guaranteed all his investors a certain percentage. He said, I have this special way of trading in the market that no one knows how it is, but I promise you that if you pay me your money, I'll give you X amount percentage in return. I don't know what he promised, but let's just say for the sake of this video, let's just say he promised 20% returns. I promise you 20% returns if you invest your money with me. And so as he got new investors onboarded, he would take the cash from the new investors and he would pay out the old investors with the 20% investment, right? Those old investors would say, wow, this is really freaking awesome. I'm going to get new people to also, my friends and my family, to invest with this guy because he's awesome. He knows what he's doing. And so then it just snowballs. But ultimately, it's really interesting. If you look into Bernie Madoff, he actually never invested his money into the stock market. The majority of the cash that he had was just recycled from new investors and old investors, right? That is completely different than Bitcoin and markets in general, right? But I think that's where that gray zone is, where people are like, well, yeah, it's because old investors and new investors. No, but the difference is there's no investment really happening in a Ponzi scheme. There's someone guaranteeing you returns, and you don't know what that person is doing. They're receiving the money and then they're investing it somehow, some way, and they're making these extraordinary returns. That's it, right? That is very different than Bitcoin, okay? And we'll go through that now. So I just want to be very clear on the 4 signs of a Ponzi. One is central operator. There's one person or entity that controls all the funds. If you give me your money, put all the money in this central pod, this central entity, this central person that somehow has figured something out that no one else has, and I'm going to be able to get you something extraordinary. Number 2 is the guaranteed returns, right? We promise you these extraordinary returns, 10% monthly in this case, like I wrote here, or 50% a year, whatever, and it sounds extraordinary and amazing, and it's probably because it's bullshit. That central authority is guaranteeing that, okay? They're not saying maybe I'll get you that. I don't know. Let me see. No. It's I guarantee you I'm going to get you this. That's how they're able to get more funds, okay? Number 3 is that there's no real investment. The money isn't put to work into anything. It's not putting in any type of assets, in any businesses. It's not doing anything, and not even in buying private companies or anything. It's just being recycled and funneled into new and old investors, okay? And that ultimately leads to an inevitable collapse because at some point, people come to collect their money, okay? In the case of Bernie Madoff in 2008, when the financial collapse happened, everyone came running to get their money, and guess what? It wasn't anywhere. It wasn't in the stock market. People thought that it was somewhere in the stock market, and they wanted it out before the stocks continued to crash. And ultimately, they weren't even in the stock market. They were in other people's pockets, all over his portfolio of customers. So a freaking mess. Ultimately, those are the main 4 signs of a Ponzi scheme. Now, how is that different from Bitcoin, right? Number 1, Bitcoin has no central operator. There is no CEO. There is no entity, no company that runs Bitcoin and decides the day-to-day of Bitcoin, how Bitcoin is going to run, where they're going to put their money in Bitcoin. There is no company that's receiving it onto its balance sheet when we're talking about Bitcoin. Now, are there companies that buy Bitcoin and put Bitcoin on their balance sheet? Yes, but that's not Bitcoin. Those are companies using Bitcoin as an asset. the same way companies use properties as assets. Okay? Very different. There is no central operator. Not even Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, is a central operator of Bitcoin, right? Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever this person is, being whatever, can come back tomorrow, and it wouldn't make a difference as to how Bitcoin is run. Bitcoin is a software, it's a system, it runs itself, right? We participate in the network, and we vote. The participants of the network get to vote on the future of Bitcoin, okay? Or maintain it as it is. Nobody can just come in and change that. There is no central operator or entity of Bitcoin. Number one, very different than a Ponzi scheme that requires that central operator. Number two is there's no promised returns. No one in Bitcoin is guaranteeing you that you're going to become a millionaire. Now, I know you've heard a million YouTubers out there that tell you, I believe that Bitcoin's, I'll tell you that I'm one of them. You know, in my videos that I do the weekly DCA, dollar cost average, I do say my opinion is I think Bitcoin's going to go up much higher. That's my belief, right? But I always say the same thing. Do your own research. Make sure you know about Bitcoin, understand the risks of Bitcoin. Bitcoin can always crash. It can always go down further. There are no promised returns in this. But I believe that it's going to go up much, much more. But I'm not promising you that, okay? And ultimately, there's nobody promising you that if you give them your money, they're going to guarantee you a percentage of return every single year, right? So right then and there, fundamentally different. Bitcoin versus a Ponzi test. Or versus a Ponzi scheme, I apologize. Okay? And thirdly, there's no payouts to early users. Okay? Early holders profit from demand. As there is more demand of this good, the more it grows in value. Then at some point, if they'd like to sell to a buyer, they can do so. Okay? But they're not leaving people holding the bag, per se. Okay? That's not how this works. Okay, there could be a sell-off of Bitcoin tomorrow, but there are other buyers that are willing to buy. That's not how Ponzi's work. Okay, the old investors or the first investors in Ponzi schemes get paid by the new investor deposits, but again, it gets recycled or cycled to them. There was no asset that was invested into, and that as demand grew, those early investors decided to sell off their earlier investments. Okay, big difference. But I think that's kind of the hardest one to grasp because there are some similarities. But ultimately, we're talking about that's how markets work, is supply and demand dynamics, whereas in a Ponzi scheme, there is no supply and demand. There is give me your money, I will promise you a guaranteed return, and you don't know what I'm doing with your money. Okay? Fundamentally different in so many ways, right? So, main things I wanted to review. Scheme number 2, the pyramid scheme. Okay? The pyramid scheme is completely different than the Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme has a central operator that receives your cash and then guarantees you a percentage return, right? Whereas the pyramid scheme, it has, again, a central operator, but the difference here is I'm not going to guarantee you a return. I'm going to say that I sell you some kind of product. Let's say my pyramid scheme, we sell highlighters, okay? We're a highlighter selling company. But really, the way that I make my money is by recruiting more people to quote unquote sell highlighters. Okay. So as I recruit more people, when I recruit them into my company, they pay a fee to join. So let's say I recruit 2 guys to come and join my highlighter selling company. Those 2 guys, I tell them, all right, to join my company, you got to pay me $100. But no worries, as you get more recruits to join to sell the highlighters, they'll pay you $100 each. So you'll make your money back and then some, right? But that money gets funneled upwards. So the whole scheme is I need to continue to recruit people to get paid, right? So as I recruit, they pay me and I make money. And as they recruit, I continue to get money because it funnels upwards and I get a certain percentage. The problem with this scheme is that ultimately you'd have to recruit all 8-9 billion people on the planet Earth for it to, I mean, not even, ultimately it stops working because you can only recruit people one time. At some point, it's going to get to the point where recruiters don't recruit any further. The recruitment game just stops. And once that stops, the whole thing falls apart because now no one's getting paid upward anymore, right? And the whole thing with a pyramid scheme is 99% of the sales or the revenue of that company or that pyramid scheme comes from recruitment. It doesn't come from the actual product being sold. So, major difference between a Ponzi and a pyramid, right? One is based off of new recruits, right, that pay to join the group, right? And they need to go and get new recruits to be able to get paid themselves, right? It is kind of, when you start to think about it in a deeper way, it is similar to a Ponzi scheme in that if the first investors don't, well, the thing is that the first investors in a Ponzi scheme aren't going out to get the new investors. The central person is going and doing that job. Although in a Ponzi scheme, when you're an old investor, you want to tell your friends and family, like, hey, I found this guy that's giving me 20% returns. You should probably invest with him. It's freaking awesome. But you as that early investor don't know that that central guy, that entity requires that so that you can get your 20%. You don't know that. Whereas in a pyramid scheme, you know how the game works. I've got to go get new recruits to be able to get people on. And if I get them to recruit more people, I'll get more money because I'll get their recruitment. So it just kind of opens up like a pyramid, right? I've got 4 people. Those 4 people go and get 8 people. Those 8 people go and get 16 people. And all of those people that got recruited, I get a percentage of the sale. So the money flows upward, all right? Completely different than a Ponzi scheme. But pyramid schemes are similar to MLMs. Very similar to MLMs. The difference between a multi-level marketing scheme, which are legal, to be honest with you. There are many that are legal. And they're profitable because they actually do both. So they have the product and they have the recruitment. So recruitment plays a major role in its revenue or its profits, and then there's also a product that they sell that also plays a significant or a more significant role in the revenue and the profits of the company than in a pyramid scheme, whereas realistically everything's based off of recruitment. Okay, so that's kind of what keeps the multi-level marketing scheme alive, is they have a product that actually sells. Okay, Herbalife is an example that's written there, and I know that one really well. That is I think a protein product. That it is a multi-level marketing scheme. They sell the product, but their whole shtick is get recruitment, and then again it flows into a pyramid scheme. So the pyramid is more like the multi-level marketing scheme, whereas neither of these are like a Ponzi. But if you watch that video of Ben McKenzie, he's using Ponzi and pyramid interchangeably throughout that video, and that's just wrong, completely wrong, right? These are completely different schemes. And so to use them interchangeably is it's ignorant, really. And then to compare it to Bitcoin, let's take a look here. Oops, I don't know what I did there. To compare the Bitcoin versus pyramid and MLM, again, completely different things. In Bitcoin, there is no active recruitment requirement, right? No one's out there actively recruiting. When Bitcoin started, it just kind of got left in the internet. Let's see what happens. It's just like, here it is. And slowly it kind of gained its own following, not because anybody was marketing it or trying to sell it or like, hey man, you got to really get it. There was none of that. It just, people saw the value in it. right? The early adopters saw the value in it. Oh, wait a minute, this is a digital coin. Can it be hacked? It can't be hacked. Does it have the double spend issue? Can you create fraudulent coins? No, you can't create fraudulent coins. Oh, that's crazy. Can I move it across the internet to someone else's wallet without a third party interfering? Yeah, you can move this direct peer to peer. You don't need a third party. You don't need a bank to be involved in the movement of value. Oh, that's really interesting. This has some utility. So I can move money anywhere in the world at any time, or move value anywhere at any time without a third party being involved. Every movement is fully transparent, so you can't really have any fraudulent actors in it. The protocol is open source, so I can read through it and make sure that there's no bugs, no scams. There is no BS in this protocol. Oh, this is a really cool thing. And little by little, it just kind of snowballed into its own entity, right? Into its own thing. And of course, along the way, as people learn about it, they want to tell other people about it. Like, this is really crazy. And I think that's where there's that comparison. It's like, oh, because I'm out here educating on Bitcoin. I want people are thinking, oh, he wants people to buy Bitcoin so that Bitcoin goes up and then he becomes rich. No, that's not the thing. The thing is, it's a super innovative technology. It's a really unique money. It's the most unique type of money that's ever existed, and it can't be defrauded. It can't be changed. And so ultimately, if you're playing if you're in the traditional finance world, the world that we know, right, fiat currencies, you're playing in someone else's game. Whenever they want, and when I say they, I mean the Federal Reserve, treasuries, central banks. Whenever they want, they print new money into the system, and every time they do that, they steal or they lower the value of the money that you've already earned. And so when they lower the value of the money that you've earned that's sitting in your bank account, they just took from your time, because for you to get that money, you traded your time for it. Yet they don't ask you, hey, is it okay if I print this money? It's going to hurt you. It's going to debase your currency. Can I do it or no? Nobody asks you anything. They just do it, right? They play by their own rules, whatever benefits them. Whereas Bitcoin, the rules are set, they're fixed. No one can change them. Either you play by the rules of Bitcoin or you don't play at all. And you cannot change these rules. And so it's honest, responsible money. And that's the big difference here. Okay? And so, yes, there are people that get excited about it and want to educate about it and show people like, man, this is an opportunity for you to break out of this bullshit system and do this instead. Now, if I get somebody to get involved in Bitcoin, do I get a payout? Do I get a commission? No. There's no recruitment required. It's a naturally growing community, right? And again, a fully decentralized network. Whereas in pyramid schemes and multi-level, recruitment is absolutely required. The second in a pyramid scheme that recruitment stops, the whole thing falls apart. So, again, very fundamentally different. Are there characteristics that are similar in some of these fraud schemes and that are in Bitcoin? Yes, but there also are characteristics that are similar in just standard markets, right? In all markets, right? Whereas more people join a certain market, more people buy a certain stock, the more it grows. But that's just market demand, because someone sees something and says, I think this is going to be valuable in the future. More valuable in the future than it is today, right? The stock market's forward looking. People aren't investing in Tesla today because they think that today it's at its highest peak. No, they're investing in Tesla today because they think 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be the number one car company in the world. And then everything's going to be based off of electric cars. Right? So that doesn't make Tesla a fraudulent company. It's providing a certain value. It's providing a certain utility. Bitcoin is the same. It's providing a value. It is providing an alternate to the standard money system that we've always had. It's providing a money that cannot be defrauded. It's providing a money that cannot be changed. It's fixed. And so you can't just print more of it if you want to pay down this debt or you want to increase the budget for defense spending. I'm just going to have double up the quantities of Bitcoin out there. No, you can't do that. So it forces fiscal responsibility, right? That's a utility. That's a value. And it goes a long way, right? So that's what sets Bitcoin apart from all of these other schemes. All right, it actually provides value. Plus a bunch of other things. So again, why does the confusion happen? Bitcoin's price history does look like a scheme. Obviously, it's grown at an exponential rate. But that's because you've got people adopting it, people that are seeing value in it. And really, in my opinion, it's because I think they're damaging the current financial system so much. They're squeezing the middle class so much that people are looking around and looking for alternatives. And they're finding Bitcoin. And so it's growing at an exponential rate. If the traditional money system worked perfectly fine and people were happy with it and there were no issues, Bitcoin would have died somewhere in the internet years ago. It would have just not gained any users. There would be no need for it. But there is a need for it because people are looking around and saying, we're getting fucked here. We need some kind of lifeboat to get us out of this financial ruin that these governments and central banks have caused with their fiscal irresponsibility. And so, yes, Bitcoin's price history looks insane. But again, just because that's happening or you're seeing this growth doesn't mean that it's automatically some kind of fraudulent scheme. It's not. It's just the demand of it is insatiable because people need it globally. I mean, you can look around at countries all over the world, fiat currencies that are crashing left and right. Egypt, Argentina, you've got Ghana. You've got, I mean, there's just countries after country after country. Their currencies are collapsing. Where are these people supposed to put their money? In the US dollar? The US is on $40 trillion of debt. I think we add another, trillion every, 90 days? It's insane. Right? People are already losing faith in the US dollar. That's why bonds are not selling the way that they used to. No one wants to buy US debt. Gold has gone up significantly. Central banks are buying gold. Right? China's buying gold. They're getting rid of their US debt because they're looking and they're saying, man, at some point, the US dollar is just going to become a piece of paper. And so we're all looking around saying the same thing. And so do we want to go back to gold or do we want to get something that's actually going to move faster and have better characteristics than gold? And so the future will decide that. I think it's Bitcoin. Some people think it's gold. That's just what it is. So that doesn't make it fraudulent. It doesn't make it a Ponzi scheme. It doesn't make it a pyramid. It makes it an asset or a commodity that people have a demand for. Okay? So, just because early adopters profited doesn't make it a fraud. That happens with a lot of companies, Tesla, Amazon, etc., right? Prices rise with adoption. That's just network effects. Again, if someone finds something of value, as more people join it, the internet is a perfect example. Is that as more people join the internet, more value it has and the more value it creates, right? Same with YouTube. The more people that joined YouTube over time, initially when YouTube started, you had 10 people posting videos. It's like, yeah, it's not that great. This site kind of sucks. But as more people joined, right, they added more value and it became more valuable. So the value of YouTube is astronomical now, right? So prices, they rise with that adoption. That's just network effects. And there's no guaranteed floor. There's no one guaranteeing you anything about Bitcoin. Bitcoin can go to zero. Something cataclysmic could happen and go to zero. No one's guaranteeing you any returns either. There's no guarantee that you're going to become a millionaire off of Bitcoin. And if anybody tells you that, don't talk to that person ever again, because they're probably trying to scam you or fraud you out of something. Okay? Bitcoin can go up, it can go down. Nobody's guaranteeing anything. Nobody knows anything. People speculate on Bitcoin. That's all you can do. Is I think this is going to be worth X amount because of all these things that are happening around it, and because of the value that it brings and the unique value prop that it has. Okay? Other than that, there's no guarantee of anything. All right? So last thing, make sure that whenever you're looking at schemes, Ponzi's, pyramids, MLMs, whatever, you're asking yourselves the right questions, right? And the three questions you want to ask yourself is, one, who runs it? Is there a central authority? Is someone operating this? Is there an entity that is guaranteeing me something? Two is, where's the structure? What is the structure of this scheme? You know, do I have to go and recruit people to get paid? Do I have to pay to be part of this system? Right? What's the deal here? And if I stop recruiting, what happens? Right? And then ultimately, what is sold? Is something being sold that you agree with? In Bitcoin, there is nothing being sold. Nobody's trying to sell you anything. It's just an asset. Okay? Bitcoin, there doesn't have a sales team. There's no marketing team out there running around telling you Bitcoin, 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 and it's a Bitcoin company. It's the Bitcoin company. Bitcoin. No. Bitcoin was an asset. It's an asset. It was created. It's there. You either want it or you don't. That's it. Okay? So again, when we look at these type of schemes, we look at the definitions of each of these schemes, and then we compare it to the way Bitcoin operates. Can you honestly say that Bitcoin falls under a Ponzi, a pyramid, or an MLM? When you look at the actual core definitions of each of these, absolutely not. You cannot say that, because Bitcoin is ultimately a decentralized money network. Decentralized, right? Where all of these require a central authority. That's number one. So again, the reason I made this video is I think this is one of the biggest objections for a lot of people that are new getting into Bitcoin, learning about Bitcoin. And I also think that this guy Ben McKenzie's running around saying these things that just are absolutely asinine. They don't make any sense, and anyone that's done 10 minutes of reading would be able to tell you the difference of these things, difference of these schemes, and why Bitcoin doesn't fit into any of them. Okay? There are lots of arguments you can make against Bitcoin, and I'm open to them, right? I'm open to listening to any of these arguments. This is not one of them any longer. This is not one of them because, again, when you look at the definition of each of these and the characteristics of each, they do not match the characteristics of Bitcoin. You cannot make a clear connection for Ponzi schemes and any of these schemes with Bitcoin. All right? So that's it, guys. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you for watching again. If you like what we're doing with the channel, like, subscribe, comment below. If you don't agree with me, put it down there. I don't care. I'm open to it. I'll listen to whatever you've got to say, and we'll keep it open. And if you like what I'm saying, great. If you don't, that's cool too. Just go ahead and put the comments below. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys got. All right, guys.